Direct, analytical tone. In April 2025, the Supreme Court of the Philippines released the Manual on the Rules on Unified Legal Aid Service, docket as Administrative Matter number 22-11-01-SC. This manual details a mandatory service quota that applies to nearly every private practitioner in the country. Previously, under Canon 3, Section 34 of the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability, pro bono work was an ethical encouragement, a call for lawyers to participate in the development of the legal system. The ULAS rules replace that encouragement with a strictly audited compliance economy. This dashboard displays the two primary variables of the new system, a 36-month timeline and a 60-hour progress bar. Every covered lawyer must complete those 60 creditable hours within each 3-year compliance period, with the first cycle beginning on January 1, 2025. To manage this, the Supreme Court has built a central digital infrastructure called the ULAS portal. All service entries, certificates, and compliance reports must be filed through this database to be recognized. Navigating this regulatory environment requires mastering 4 specific pillars: coverage, creditable services, beneficiary verification, and firm aggregation. The system begins with a broad baseline. Every member of the Philippine Bar is presumed to be a covered lawyer and is immediately liable for the 60-hour requirement. There are absolute exclusions for lawyers in government service whose roles prohibit private practice. This list includes justices, judges, government prosecutors, and attorneys within the Public Attorney's Office. The manual also provides for conditional or lifetime exclusions based on tenure. A lawyer is exempt if they have been in the practice of law for at least 35 years, or have reached the age of 60 within the relevant compliance period. Unlike the absolute exclusions for government roles, these age and experience-based exemptions are not applied automatically by the system. A lawyer must proactively apply for a certificate of exclusion through the ULAS portal. This requires the submission of an attestation of exclusion and supporting documents from the Office of the Bar Confidant or the IBP. Under ULAS, exemption is an active administrative hurdle. If a practitioner fails to secure the certificate before a compliance period ends, they remain liable for the full 60 hours of service. This diagram illustrates the filter for creditable hours. To fill the 60-hour quota, a lawyer must perform specific acts that involve the actual application of law, legal procedure, or legal knowledge. Every hour logged must be rendered free of charge. This means the lawyer cannot receive any valuable consideration, monetary or otherwise, for the service. Rule 4 defines acceptable services across several categories. These include representation in courts and administrative bodies, legal counseling and contract drafting, and developmental assistance such as human rights training and affidavit making. Notarization is excluded from the quota unless it meets a very narrow exception. It only counts if it is performed for a qualified beneficiary and occurs within the lawyer's commissioned territorial jurisdiction. General charity or non-legal volunteer work is not recognized by the system. The ULAS economy only credits specific legal labor that has been stripped of financial incentive. Even if a lawyer performs a qualifying service, the hours cannot be logged unless the client is verified as a qualified beneficiary. The simplest pathway to verification is through a court appointment. If a lawyer is appointed as counsel de officio, the client is automatically recognized as a qualified beneficiary for that specific case. For all other clients, the lawyer must apply a strict economic test. The audit's gross monthly income must not exceed double the monthly minimum wage in their location, and they cannot own real property with a fair market value exceeding 300,000 pesos. The client must provide documentary proof of this status, such as income tax returns, payslips, or a certificate of indigency from the Department of Social Welfare and Development. This information is codified in a Qualified Beneficiary Declaration, a sworn document where the client details their financial status and the legal service they are seeking. The final step is the lawyer's responsibility. They must personally interview the applicant, examine the documents, and then execute a covered lawyer certification under their lawyer's oath to attest that the client is indigent. The ULAS system places the burden of auditing poverty directly on the practitioner, making the lawyer's oath the gatekeeper of the portal's integrity. To manage compliance at scale, the rules introduce the registered organization. This allows law firms to pool the compliance hours of all their covered lawyers into a single aggregate. This visualization demonstrates how individual requirements of 60 hours each are aggregated into a single pool for the firm. The total minimum hours for the organization is simply 60 multiplied by its number of covered lawyers. This shared pool introduces administrative complexities when personnel change. Consider an associate who renders 20 hours of service but then leaves the firm to join an exempt government agency mid-cycle. The manual provides a 50-50 sharing rule for the scenario. Half of those 20 hours stay with the firm's aggregate pool. The other 10 hours follow the lawyer into their exempt status, held for future use if they ever return to private practice. Registered organizations benefit from shared labor, but they also create a shared liability. Managing partners must actively monitor these pools as lawyers join or leave the organization. At the end of the 36-month cycle, practitioners must file their final reports. Solo practitioners file an individual compliance report, while firms file a consolidated compliance report. These reports are immutable once filed in the ULAS portal. Any deficit in hours will trigger a formal notice to comply and start a 60-day grace period to resolve the shortage. The workflow is precise. Identify coverage, verify the beneficiary with documentation, render strictly defined free services, and log the entries. The ULAS manual replaces the abstract concept of legal charity with a data-driven system. By engineering this quantifiable economy, the Supreme Court ensures that the constitutional right to legal assistance becomes an audited reality.